Okay, welcome to episode number 3. Today we're going to talk about what we think is one of the bigger stories of the week in U.S. real estate news and the local story. Talk about rates, and then my personal favorite, as always, the BS real estate headline of the week. So let's get started here. And again, let's talk about biggest episode, or rather the biggest story this week. Miami has overtaken New York City as the city with the most $1 million active listings. I love that. Number 2, the city of Boise has abandoned their uh, plans or desire to accept annexation requests from properties up in the North Foothills, up above Highlands and up along Cartwright Road and all that fun, Cartwright Ranch Road, all that fun stuff. We'll dive into that in a little bit. Take a look at mortgage rates, still heading in the right direction, and then my personal favorite, the BS real estate story of the week. That should be fun. So let's go ahead and talk about what is the biggest national story going on. Miami now has more listings than New York City, over $1 million. Let's take a look and see what that means. So, here we over on Realtor.com. Miami overtakes New York City as the major city with the most $1 million homes as wealthy buyers head south. Now, a lot of things driving that, politics primarily and economics, but economics are always influenced by politics. So take that for what it's worth. But they're saying that by December 2025, Miami had 10,591 listings priced at $1 million or above. Now just take a second and wrap your head around that number. They have over 10,500 listings that are $1 million or higher. As a Miami native, I look at that and scratch my head. I mean, there were always expensive parts of Miami. The Gables, Coral Gables is very expensive. Once you get out on the water out towards Star Island and South Beach used to not be an expensive place, believe it or not. In the mid '80s, when I lived down there the last time, I used to surf South Beach quite a bit. And back then, you actually looked when you were walking down to the water, you were watching the sand, make sure you didn't step on a hypodermic needle. Half the hotels were literally boarded up. And if it was towards the end of the month, when you came back to your car, there were a bunch of senior citizens there that were panhandling you really, really hard because their Social Security had run out. And there was only one place to get any kind of food. It was all the way down at the end of the cul-de-sac where those big white the big stage is now at the end of Lincoln. And a guy up there had this literally a one garage door you'd pop open and he had a stolen pizza oven in there and he'd sell pizza by the slice. But that's 85, 86. And then, Joe Stone Crab opened up down inside Lincoln a little bit, and it took off from there. But it's good. But back in the '80s, it was a scary place, kind of like Times Square. Times Square was really, really in New York City was really, really scary in the '80s, and now it's the cool place to be. So I guess everything changes, right? So anyway, so Miami now has more than 1 million. I'm sorry, it has more $1 million plus listings than New York City. So talked about people moving. Let's see what's happening there because that's certainly the driver for it. So let's talk about net domestic migrations, which states are losing and gaining. So we come over here, and on the positive column, we got North Carolina gained 84,000, Texas gained 67,000, South Carolina 66,000, Tennessee 42,000, and Arizona 31,000. All respectable numbers. Let's look at who lost what. California still leading the list, no shocker there. They lost a net, and when they say net, they're taking how many people left and how many people came in, and California still lost almost 230,000 people. New York has lost 137. Illinois lost 40,000. New Jersey lost 37. Massachusetts lost 33.4. All high tax states. It is what it is. It costs a lot to live there, so people are leaving. And then, with New York City, the elections are pretty popular, not popular, but they're widespread news about what's going on there and some of the things that the new mayor has said. And I'm sure that's driving part of it too. Who wants to get taxed more? Nobody. So on this next one is per capita. And when we're talking about per capita, I'm going to jump one more screen over here. For every 1,000 people that live in that state, how many new people came in on a net basis is what they're looking at. So in Florida, you only got one person for every 1,000 people living there. But look at the numbers there. If you look inside that small white box, 2019 pre-COVID, you had 133,000, almost 134,000 people moving there. Then 2020 hit, it dropped down to 62,000, almost 63,000. 21, this is where the Great Migration started happening. You had almost a quarter million people move in 21. You had over 300,000 move in 22. 23, it dropped back down to 185. 24 was 64,000. Now 25 is really small, 22,500. So fewer and fewer people are moving there. And there's a couple things driving that. Number one, Florida's in the midst of a price contraction outside of Dade County. Dade County condos are really taking a hit. So is Broward. That's far southeast Florida. But Southwest Florida and West Florida are in serious contraction right now. They got hit by a couple hurricanes last year in the Bay Area, Tampa Bay area, and then just south there in Bradenton, Manatee County. I don't know if Sarasota. Yeah, Sarasota got one too. So Sarasota County got hit too. But you've got a combination of the hurricanes came through, prices shrinking, insurance is ridiculously expensive down there. If you're anywhere near the water, between the wind insurance, flood insurance, just general property insurance, it's quite expensive. Far more so. I mean, you have to get over into California's fire area to start seeing good parallels. So that's driving it. Texas Gulf Coast is having the same problem, and Austin is in free fall too. But that's a whole different story. But that's what's driving Florida specifically. Now let's go jump up to New York. So they've been losing people even before COVID. So COVID, they lost 180,000. 2020, 73,000 roughly. 21, they lost 300,000. 22, almost the same amount, 295. 23 was 170. 24 was 120. And then 2025 jumped up again. They lost 137,586. And what I'd love to see on that number, and I don't have the data right now, is how much those people earn. Are they all high net worth individuals leaving, or are they people? Because you get two types. You get the people who can't afford to live, like California. A lot of those people leaving California are just moving over to Clark County, which is Las Vegas, Nevada, or Washoe County, Truckee County, up around Reno, Carson City, up in there, because that's as far as they can afford to move. But then you have, a lot of wealthy people in New York, and of that 137,586 that moved last year, if 50 or 60,000 those are millionaires or better, that's a lot of tax revenue walking away. So it is what it is. But right now, after looking at all the real estate stories I look at every day and all this week so far, I thought that was the biggest one, as far as Miami having more $1 million listings in New York City, because New York's not cheap no matter how you slice it. I mean, get away from the cost of living, just the acquisition price of real estate. You could have a co-op building with 60 units in it, and every one of them's over $1 million. So it's amazing, as somebody who was born in Miami and who's lived there on and off many times over the years. It's amazing that they've got that many over $10,500 million listings. So there you have it. So that was what that is. So let's go back. Let's talk about next up. We want to talk about what's the biggest local real estate story. And that's going to be Boise. The city of Boise is not going to allow anybody else who owns parcels outside the northern Boise city limits up in the foothills. And, when that's like the Highlands in that area. Basically, when you're driving up to Bogus Basin and you get up to the point where you pass the Highlands subdivision, then you go into, Simplot Hills on your left, and then you start getting into those single custom homes that have been built on the left side as you're going up. As soon as you make that one last turn where all of a sudden the houses stop, that's pretty much the northern Boise city limit right there. And there's a lot of property up there, a lot of parcels that are in the county that have been wanting to come into the city of Boise because of all the support, tie-in, and all the other fun stuff. But the city of Boise said, no, we're going to stop that, which was an interesting call on their part. I'm not quite sure why they did it, because it's going to create work for them. Let's jump over here. Hang on 1 second. Here we go. All right, so Boise, here we go. They've stalled the foothills. I don't know. There wasn't a map on this one, but they're pushing it. The city council said, no, we're going to stem growth by resolving to limit housing in the northern foothills. They want to prioritize open space, which I get. That's great, but you got to understand the county's far more. Ada County's far more likely to approve some kind of development than the city is. So I thought it was interesting that they would vote no on that, and it creates a lot of work for them. And that they're going to have to go back. They're going to have to adjust the area of impact. What do they call it? The map of impact. It's basically as part of their long-term planning, there's a area of impact map, And once they have made a decision like this and they say, we're not going to do that anymore, they're going to cede that uh, area of impact away. So it's going to come back into the city limits. That leaves it wide open for the county to plant a flag and say, okay, this is ours going forward. We're going to capture all the taxes off of it, which they capture the lion's share anyway. But they also have all the zoning and planning say over it as well. So now that's going to be all county, and it's infinitely more easy to navigate through the county P&Z side than it is to go through the Boise City P&Z planning and zoning. So it's going to be interesting. I think we'll probably wind up seeing a few more developments up there, more than just the single homes, because there's quite a few single homes that have been going up. But there's some large parcels up there, and they're privately held. It's going to be interesting. So keep an eye on that. I will certainly update you as we see movement over there. But it's, you know, I'm I don't know that I'm shocked, but it's not a decision I would have expected City of Boise to make, knowing how much the city council wants to limit things. I would think they would want to keep control over it and just say no, but that's not what they're doing. They're going to cede control of that to the county, and there's no question it's easier to get something through county than it is through City of Boise as far as building and developing. So there you have it. That was that one. Next up, we want to talk about rates. So instead of jumping back and forth, I want to go to the next story, which is today is Wednesday, the 29th or 30th. It is the 28th, actually. Sorry about that. And the Fed has held rates steady, which is no surprise. And I think it's an incorrect move for what it's worth. And yeah, I'm just a real estate agent, so take that with a grain of salt. But all the Fed's data is in the rearview mirror, and this is again, it's not a political statement. It's just economic statement. They're looking at stuff that's averaged over a year, whereas if you take that to a much shorter window, the job market is definitely softening, no question. AI is having a huge impact on the white collar. I mean, if you're an accountant, if you are in graphic artistry, any of the AI, say like if you write code, forget about it. Claude's eating your lunch, and I don't say that with any kind of joy. It's just it is what it is. So we have issues in the job market, and the economy is growing. And if we brought rates down to where money was cheaper, the economy would grow more. That raises wages. It raises a lot of things. It helps lower interest rates on credit cards and cars and everything else that people that finance and pay on. And it would also bring mortgage rates down, which would help. So, all that said, the market kind of yawned when the Fed didn't change anything, which they expected. And if we jump over here to mortgage rate daily, we are looking at the 10-year treasuries at 4.244. So it came up a little bit. But the 30-year fixed came down. The spread right now, as of when I ran it right before I started hitting the record button here, was 2.45, 245 basis points. Historically, and I know you hear me say this every week, but I always want to give the context. Historically, it's been 175 basis points. It got as bad as 300 basis points when rates were hitting 8%. So it's coming down in the right direction. If we can get it back down to the historical, we're gaining what? 4, 5, 70 basis points right there. So it would go from this 6.16, down to almost 5.5 points. That would be great if the spread settled, but we'll see. The mortgage guys are definitely, a couple weeks ago when President Trump told the GSEs to go up by $200 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities, the spread shrank really quick and we hit 599 for a few hours and then it popped back up. But, we'll see. As I told you in the last episode, the Japanese bond market is responsible for most of the jump we had from 602 to 621. But that's shaken out too. And the yen is behaving. It's staying pretty much in a narrow bracket. There's not a ton of interference, if you will, from the Bank of Japan or from the finance ministry. And we're settling back down. We got 5 basis points back in a week, which is nice. And if it keeps going in that trend, then we'll be back down around 610 here shortly. So rates are behaving, still lower than a year ago, thank God. But they're not hanging out under 6. And I quite honestly, I don't see anything in the short term that's going to get us below 6. But I do expect within the next 12 to 18 months that we'll be in the high fives consistently. It'll get below six there and then it'll stay there for a while. And we'll probably bounce for the whole year anywhere between six and a quarter on the high side and, probably 570, 575 on the low side. But stay tuned. We'll see. All right. So there we go on that. All right. So jumping back to our, let's see, we just covered rates. 617 is today. Actually, 616 now. So it's actually dropped 1 basis point in, like the 25 minutes between the time I made that slide deck and the time we got to the actual story. So trending in the right direction. I love that. So, biggest BS real estate story of the week. Now, I'm trying to mix it up so I don't do the same thing or a variation of the same thing every time because there's always a million BS stories out there, but the ones that are out there every week that make me crazy. Market's going to crash. It's not. We've talked about Trump and the institutional investors to death. I'm not going to touch that again. It is what it is. But if you go to episode 2, that tells you exactly what's going to shake out, and that's it's not going to change. That is what it is, and going forward, that's what it's going to be. You might see more of those guys either start their own construction companies from the beginning, or you'll see more of them acquire construction companies so they can build to rent and all that stuff. But that's it. But today, I want to talk about another consistent theme we hear. Mortgage just hit multi-year lows, and while they're lower than they were a year ago, it's not like we're living at 599. It hit 599 one Friday, 2 Fridays, 3 Fridays ago for about 6 hours, and then it jumped back up again. So, let's see. Let's jump over here. There we go. And so this guy, this is a post. I don't know this guy. He's in Alabama, I think. But he leads with mortgage rates just hit their lowest point in more than 3 years. Not a headline, it's a green light. Here's what's going to happen: buyers jump into the market, sellers regain leverage, closers get paid, and he's trying to entice people to get their real estate license or come work for him. So, the rates are definitely lower than they have been in the last year. There were times last year they jumped down almost this low. Actually, they may have been this low at one point for a short period of time towards the beginning of 25. But it's one of those things where God, there's so many things that I'm not trying to hesitate. There's just so many things to slice and dice this thing with, and it's Redfin talking about, oh, there's X amount more buyers than there have been in the last 7 years. Nobody freaking knows this. All right, that's a BS number they're pulling out of thin air. They made a model. This is what the model says. But models aren't always. Actually, models are usually wrong, to be honest. Uh, and all this crap about, hey, mortgage rates are low, so you got to jump on it right now. We also have the highest number of buyers canceling deals right now too, and that's it's interesting in that there's some dichotomy there. We're seeing a lot of action right now in the Boise market. I mean, honestly, here we are in the fourth week of January. Okay, typically a very slow part, but we've had consistent traffic on all our listings. Our buyers are out there going into escrow. We've seen multiple offers over $1 million. One deal they had to go 60,000 over ask to get it. Over $1 million. So that part's really strong. Part of it here in Boise is probably because we haven't had snow, and I'm going to talk. Well, we got snow this morning. Finally, we got a quick dusting, and then everybody blinked and it was melted and gone again. But until we get some real thick snow on the ground, and probably it has to happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because once you get past that, regardless of whether we have snow or not, unless we get snowmageddon, by mid-February, the market's back in action up here, no matter what, and moving in the right direction. So if it's already moving, and it actually never slowed down. I mean, maybe the week of Christmas and the week of Thanksgiving it slowed down a little bit, but we picked up new buyers. We got people going in escrow left and right. We picked up new listings. We just picked up a new listing this week. So the market's healthy, but we have the highest number of cancellations going on at the same time. Now, that's a national number. I think it's 16% of all the deals going into escrow in December canceled. But again, context matters. I'd love to see how much of that is in the Gulf Coast, how much, Florida, Texas, Alabama, certainly in Texas around Austin, Houston, Dallas, all over Florida. You know, what's driving it? What's driving the cancellation? And are those buyers buying something else, or are they just getting cold feet and something in the news spooked them and they're backing out because of that? You know, because it's not the rates. The rates aren't fluctuating enough to create chaos. If they were going from 599 to 699, absolutely, you have a bunch of people that weren't qualified, that got priced out. That's not the case. We're not seeing swings big enough unless somebody's just absolutely pushing the envelope to where they're approved for $800,000 and they're buying $800,000 and the rate jumped up 10 basis points and now they're not qualified. That could happen. But you know, it's a hard and fast rule. The volatility is not coming from the mortgage rate side. So, and honestly, it's not coming from the underwriting side either. So it's psychological. It could be that they're reading, you know, headlines and it's scaring them, and they just want to wait. But I don't know. We're not having cancellations on our side. Matter of fact, we were in a couple multiple offers. We were the backup offer praying for a cancellation on the other side. Didn't happen. They went ahead and closed, and we haven't had any canceled escrows, you know, in recent memory up here either in Boise with us, with either our buyers or our sellers. So we'll wait and see. But you know, the fact that people were saying, "Oh, it's the lowest rate in multiple years," and you got to jump in, and I got this guy up here because it was the first post I found. But I've seen that headline a number of times this week, so I wanted to just touch on that. So there you have it. As always, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. I'm Rick Powell. If you haven't met me before, I'm a third generation broker. My family's been doing this for over 70 years. Kirsten and I have been doing it over 20 years. We've been real estate investors for over 30. And we just love real estate. We really do. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like it. Don't forget to see our other videos. The podcast is consistent out once a week, a minimum. But we also have plenty of other videos we're posting about different areas in town. And we're launching a new land channel too, because I love dirt and we don't get to talk about it much. And I don't want to screw up the algorithm inserting dirt deals inside of the regular residential stuff. So as I get that populated more, we'll link to that. But there you have it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. And again, if you have any questions or any topics you want me to cover, give me a comment or send me an email at sold@thepowellgroupidaho.com and we'll get it up here. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.